if you ask me, I am a person whose career has been built by open source. So contributing back to the open source is something like that I'm very proud of.
Mozilla is the one of the community where I started my career with, and because of that, I learned a lot. And right now, I am one of the council member who work with the board of directors of. And I never thought my name will be there on the Mozilla's leadership team, along with all the stakeholders for Mozilla in globally.
95% of the influencers are posting wrong information, and I hate it. Like, I am not the person who likes to highlight the things that are being done wrong in a wrongly manner by some other person, because I don't think that's my business. But I want to keep learning from the good people.
I've seen so many videos on the YouTube saying that you can become a DevOps engineer if you even don't know about the Linux, if you don't know about the programming language. I always say, or at that time वो हिंदी में मेरे आता है सर, कैसे भाई कैसे?
Late 2018 19, then I got to know about this new framework checks, and I knew, like, when I saw it, I knew like this is going to be something big, and I will tell you why. The good thing about ML community is it's very open, and and I'm like having so I'm like focusing on the open word here, because it is literally built on open source. If you look at the ML tech stack, everything, every major thing has been built on open source.
Hello everyone, welcome to the another episode of TACOS, where we'll be talking about community and open source. This talk show is all about honoring the people for their contribution to building and nurturing the communities that support open source projects, open source technology, and cybersecurity for the better and the safer. In this episode, we have Aakash Nain, who is a senior data scientist who's recognized for his contribution for the world of machine learning and deep learning. As a Keras Core contributor and TensorFlow Addons Maintainer, his expertise has earned his title as a Google Developer Expert in machine learning. Akash has a passion lies in the realm of computer vision with deep learning, where his innovative work has made a significant impact on the open source projects and so many people around the globe. A strong advocate for open source is continuous contribute to cutting edge technology. I think he's the one of the best person to talk about AI and ML. So let's dive into conversation with remarkable Akash Nain. Welcome Akash to talk.
Thank you, Mehul. Thank you for having me here today. I know, like, we have been talking about this for a long time, but now I'm glad that we are finally doing it. So, just to give you a context, I have known Mehul for almost 2 years now. We met back at ICS 2019 or 20, I guess, or 21. Was it 21?
Uh, 21, yes, 21.
Yeah, it was 21. So yeah,
Yes.
I met Mehul there, and like we have been very good friends. Although like I never knew about him, or he didn't knew about me before the community summit. So I met him in a community event, and I'm glad like we have come so far along those lines. So yeah, he's a good friend, and I'm so sorry I've been delaying this for so long, but finally, yeah, we are here. We will be talking all about open source and machine learning today.
Right. And one of the thing I would like to add over there that me and Akash actually very opposite to each other, right? And the best part happened is there that we both have a different interest. That I am totally community person. He is nowhere has the public presence, but that's the best part because I wanted to highlight that how you can be not very active in the public, public platforms, but still can make an impact through your contribution. So that's something I really want to highlight. And Akash is the best person, and that's the only reason that I am chasing him a lot. Though we're knowing for 2 years, we just chat like once a year,
Yeah,
whenever
once
we
or twice a
once a
year.
year. But the
Yeah.
spark is same, the passion is same. The kind of passion we both have, it's still same. So that's the best part. And वो बोलते हैं ना opposite attracts. So we हमारा वैसा चीज है. And I'm inspired a lot by Akash. So that's a really always in my mind ki I really wanted. And the last summit I mentioned him. First summit that I wanted to do this because the kind of project that he does, the kind of work that he's doing, it's simply amazing. So we are going to talk about that. So let's start with your active involvement with the open source projects like Keras and TensorFlow. So I would like to understand like how those how did you know about that project and how contributing this project impact your professional life, or maybe boost your career as a data scientist?
Yeah. So to answer that question, like I would like to take you back a few years back. So I started my data science and machine learning journey in 2015 when I was in college, and that was my pre-final year. So one of my seniors like showed me something about RL, and if I remember correctly, that was a Mario's self-playing Mario's game, and it fascinated me. So always wanted to work towards automating those kind of things. I was really fascinated by that. So I started learning about these things in 2015. Then in 2016, I was completely involved in data science and machine learning through Kaggle. Still in 2016, 2017, I learned a lot about the data science and the modeling aspects and the data part. Uh, but there was one element that I always found missing on my part, and that was like if I have to build something from scratch. Let's say I was using TensorFlow at the time, and I so I will come to the part of libraries later, but just to give you a hint, like I was using TensorFlow and Keras that time, and I was always curious, like if I have to build something from scratch, I have to build something like this from scratch, what would it take? So that particular mindset, like I have to learn how to write those things on the backend side, right? And I'm using the term backend loosely here, because backend is not the backend that you are that you might assume. I'm talking about like the stuff that happens behind a library. So if you are using like TensorFlow, Keras, or PyTorch, so using it is one thing, and like writing the software itself is another thing. So one of the things that I wanted as a ML person, that is something that I always want to learn. Like if I have to write something from scratch, I should be able to write it. And that's where like I started digging into open source. And in fact, like the first few years, if you ask about open source, the first few years, 2017, 2018, those were the years where like spent most of the time reading libraries code. And I was not like contributing it, but I was like trying to understand how things are written, what are like the limitations, what are the advantages of doing things in a certain way. And if you are like trying to write a performant piece of code, what are the things that you need to take care of? So the first 2 years, like I digged into libraries code for a long period of time, practicing very small bits on my end. Then in 2019, I started contributing to the ecosystem like heavily. I just made up my mind, like I know what is all to be done, and I started contributing to it. Even though like I had few years of experience of developing software, but like this was the first time when I started contributing to open source. But I'm glad like I took that step, and like from there to this day, I have contributed a lot of stuff to open source, and I'm very glad about it, because I think like if you ask me, I am a person whose career has been built by open source. So contributing back to the open source is something like that I'm very proud of.
Okay. If you
Yeah.
can share a couple of example of the, because it's very
Yeah.
important when you work on the project, or initiatives is very important. Like what kind of initiative that you've taken. So
Yeah.
any initiative or any of the project that you worked on it, or maybe share with your team and you really proud of, and that
Mhm.
might be help other people to increase the, or let's say expand the data science community.
Mhm. So I was sharing code examples for a long time on Kaggle itself. But if you ask me about open source, like TensorFlow and TensorFlow add-ons were the first piece of software like where I contributed to. And it was really a big step for me. Like even though the contributions at the start were small, but for me it was a big step. Like I have stepped into the ecosystem where now I'm contributing to the ecosystem and like gaining from it. So TensorFlow add-ons was really a major factor of success in terms of like contributing to open source. Then we had a redesign for Keras, and there were like a call for contributions for code examples. And Keras has been like my favorite API of all the time, and I will come to this part as well when we talk about libraries and other things. But I always wanted to contribute to the Keras ecosystem because that has been my favorite API to work with, and there are a number of reasons for it. So when there was a call for contributions for code examples, I started writing code examples for Keras.io, and that is like these are the official documentations and these are the official code examples that go on the website. So that was another big step for me. Then I got a opportunity recently. I got an opportunity to like rewrite Keras from scratch for multi backend. Like let's develop the API from scratch along with the main author Franco. So I worked with him along with other team members. So we built the whole thing for multiple backends. Now Keras works with Keras is back to its roots where like it is working with multiple backends. Now it works with TensorFlow, it works with JAX, it works with PyTorch. So yeah, that has been a like very rewarding journey for me.
Right. You know, in that one, I remember of Jax.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Jax has a very good connection, and that is the one of the reason that we are a very good friends now.
I
With
remember
him.
it. I
Yeah,
remember it.
because I was so much passionate about when he mentioned about that he's a GD for ML, and not him but somebody from the community. He mentioned that he's the first GD for Jax, and I was not aware of what Jax is. And since we were sharing the room together, and so we of course, and we had only one key, so that was the good advantage. We had only one key, so we have to communicate a lot, right?
Mm.
So that's the
Yeah.
best part, I think, over there. We have to communicate a lot, so we leave room together, we come together for lunch, dinner, or breakfast. So of course, when you go and meet community members, so you talk about like what you do. Let's say I was talking there, I'm from GDG Nasik, and he says I am a GD for ML, and then I mentioned and because I'm
Checks.
noticing that he few times he never mentioned about Jax, and I started putting that out every time that GD, ML, and Jax.
Checks.
Then people started asking question because trust me, out of 90% of the people who came into this community summit, they were not knowing about Jax at all,
Yeah.
right? And I think because of that, so many people started knowing that. And I want to highlight this one because according to me, you are one of we are not very active in the community as a public platform perspective. As
Mhm.
a code contributor, you are so active.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just wanted to understand that what are the ways you can highlighting over because that's very important because people think that you can being an open source contributor you can highlight your work if you are on the public platform like you putting a post on the Twitter, be on Instagram, creating technical contents or no, or video content or textual content, so many other ways. So how is your journey as a contributor but sharing your journey with all the people in the community? We want to know your perspective and your mindset.
Yeah. So one of the good things about like my ML journey has been, and I would like to say that this has been another highlight. So
Mhm.
there was whenever like starting with Kaggle. So there was we started a small group of people started a Slack, and this was unofficial Slack for Kaggle, and we named it Kaggle Noobs because all of the members, not all of them, but I was certainly a noob at that time.
Okay.
So we started that Slack, and that Slack grew from like 10 people to 10,000 people. And yeah, so and during that phase I learned a lot, and I shared a lot of things. I was very active in that Slack. I was very active on Twitter. So touchwood, like my Twitter community and like the Kaggle community and the people I have been working with on the open source side, they have been like very generous to me. Like uh, they have never hesitated to like share things with me on the open source side, on the software side, or if I need something on the learning side, they have never like hesitated uh, to tell me things like how to do it. So I like to dedicate, although like I have put a lot of efforts on my end, but yeah, if you ask me, like these are the people who I just say like these have been like within these are the highlights of my ML career. So if had these people not been there, I don't think like I would have succeeded that much, especially in terms of open source and writing quality software. But yeah, I have learned that now, and I'm very grateful that whoever is connected to me on Twitter and Kaggle Slack, I have learned a lot from them. And I have contributed back a lot.
Okay. Would you like to, because I mentioned a couple of them, because there's a platform where we can share our gratitude and recognize their efforts. Would you like to name any of the people who remember and would like to thank them over here?
Yeah, so Michael is surely one of them, and if you don't know about him, he was one of the youngest Kaggle grandmasters during that time. So Michael is one of them. Then Jorge is there. Then from India, Rohan is there. So Rohan is my colleague, and he has been a very good friend. And like he's among the very few people I have met respect for, and I've learned a lot of things from him. So yeah, these are the people like I have learned a lot from. And like not only these people, if I talk about open source, like Francois has been there. Like it's a dream for me. Like when I started my Kaggle journey, I started my data science journey, I was asking very noobish or foolish questions on GitHub. And then from asking a simple question to work alongside with that person, the main author of the library, it's a huge achievement for me. So yeah, these I like to thank all these people for like for their gratitude towards my learning. And like it's been an incredible thing, like to work with those people, to learn from these people, and to discuss things with those people.
Right. And it's a very good habit of ask question, because I ask lot of questions, and whenever I go, I tell people, if you have a question, ask it, even if the question is stupid.
Yeah,
Don't judge that it's a question. Let others judge that whether the question is stupid or not. Because
yeah,
asking not a question, that's the stupidest thing that you should do. So you should always ask questions, and you
always.
never know, because hearing that, people who are like, you never thought you starting asking question, then you are going to work with them.
Yeah,
It's like a fascinating thing, and like you something kind of you can cherish all of your time. I got so many opportunities in my time where I work with a lot of people where I've never thought that I'm going to sit next to them.
mm,
And
yeah,
for example, let's say right now, I Mozilla is the one of the committee where I started my career with, and because of that, I learned a lot. And right now, I am one of the council member who work with the board of directors of. And I never thought my name will be there on the Mozilla's leadership team, along with the all the stakeholders for Mozilla in globally. So I never
yep,
thought that. But the only thing, sheer passion of sharing the open source, sheer passion of what we learned. But what I want to highlight in this one is that when we share our knowledge, right? People sharing a lot knowledge on the social media and all other platforms, right? Being not active on the social media, what are your ways when you share your work so that help other people? Maybe by writing a blog post, maybe running a weekly call, or what something you do, because people think that being active on the social media, that is something works, but that is not. That's something that people attract and they start doing it. What is the other way around?
yeah. So the other way around is like to start contributing by writing code. And I say it like very lightly, but it's the truth. So one of the best things about ML community in general, like if I talk about other communities like web and Android community or like iOS community, right?
Mhm.
If you just take all these communities together, the one very big differentiator that you will find in ML community is like people are very open to uh, share their code and their findings, whether it's research or applied ML or it's, and there are multiple platforms where people do it. Like I said, like Kaggle is the one, right? Kaggle has been like one of the largest data science community platform for a long period of time. But even if you look at Twitter, the ML community of on Twitter is literally amazing. Like if you ask me, it is one of the best communities out there. You
Okay.
get to learn so many things just by scrolling 10 minutes of relevant Twitter feed for ML, that it will be enough for a day. Like there are like hundreds of things are coming out every day, and not everything is useful. Twitter simply acts as a very good filter if you know like what people to follow, who to follow, and like what are the things that you want to discuss. So if you know that like these communities can help you go from zero to hero in a very short period of time.
Mhm.
But it's not like you just learn from there and just put it on social media. The one differentiating thing that you can do on your side is put it into an application. And by application, again, I'm using the word application very loosely, because it doesn't necessarily have to be an application. It can be either open source, it can be a simple notebook, it can be some some of the findings from a paper, it can be some educational content on a medium post, or it can be anything. But until but you if you are like putting that effort, like you if you are putting that learning into writing, then you are actually learning, then you know that you are making the progress.
Right, right. Because I think you are giving your time, because apart from you what you work or let's what you study, if you are giving this extra time, that
Yeah,
nothing but you're investing your time into this one. And when
yeah,
people are going to read that, they also appreciate, because once you write something and then it's getting helped by other people, right?
yeah,
For example, it helped me while reading your blog post or something, or that solved my couple of problem, the library that you referred over there. So that
yeah,
may change something, that might land into some other opportunity, maybe working with the people who written that blog post, or maybe they
yeah.
are hiring for something, or maybe some kind of a community opportunity. Because what I thought, we started with the one community by our own interest, but after
Mhm.
that we started exploring the, the other communities who are working in the similar zone.
Yeah,
Since you mentioned about the couple of communities which you later on you joined, and one of them is Kaggle, and what the other community that you mentioned?
I mentioned the Twitter ML community.
Yes. So this is the best way to, and I love Twitter a lot, because I spend my daily around 20 to 25 minutes around Twitter to, and of course, follow the right people, follow the right community groups. That's the best way. But apart from that, uh, let's say whenever people like me, and when I look at you, so first thing people thought, this guy is not very active in communities, so means they are not doing anything. This is a mindset.
Yep,
I'm
yep,
yeah, this is what the people look for. And for example, when we meet in the any community summit, so people mostly recognize the people who are very active on the social media. Those who are not active, they think that they are might be they are, they don't even know what their profile is, until unless you go to them and ask. So
yeah,
that two things that happened, which I observed so many times. People say don't go and ask like what you do, because until you go, you might don't get it what they are doing it. Might be there is something amazing that they're doing and you might don't know. Second is that if you don't go, you can go by yourself and tell them, okay, what you guys are doing. Tell them what like happened
yep,
in our case, right?
yep,
Because I talk a lot and you talk very less.
yep, yep, yep. Exactly,
So
exactly.
So, what you want to say on that? When people think that based on the community's activeness in terms of public presence, and they starting thinking about that if you are not active on this way, you are not
Mhm.
doing it. So, what are the ways? Because I really wanted to highlight this, because the people who are going to hearing this, because I've seen people follow. For example, if I'm very active on social media, and if I'm doing, let's say I'm very active on cloud, because that's my
Mhm.
favorite topic. So
Yeah.
people started doing that. Though they are not interested, the only
Mm.
thing they seeing my social media life, or maybe the kind of active I am, the kind of things I do in my life, right? So maybe they attract. So what
Yeah.
do you understand that? Because I've seen the people who are in the back end. There is very famous term that I remember now. Not all the billionaires are on the social media, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
some of
Yep.
the great minds I've made who are not even a single presence on the social media, right?
Yep.
So what do you want to say in that? What is your message to them, the people who are very much fascinated, but they just somewhere lost because of this fascinating word of community?
Yeah. So I see two kind of people on platforms. If I talk about social platforms, so I observe two kind of people, and I'm being very specific to ML community here.
Okay.
So nowadays there has been instances of lot of influencers like coming out of with lot of content, like putting out a lot of content on the new technologies. The though I want to clarify that I don't have a problem with any of those influencers, but you will observe that there are two kind of people. One who are very technical and are good at technicals. The other one who aren't good at technical, but they are very good at marketing the technicals.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I'm not saying that is a bad thing, but you need to decide like which one among them is going to be your role model, right? So that is completely your choice. Now some people have problem with the influencer, some don't. I so if you look at my feed, you will not find a single influencer in my feed. I don't follow any of them, because I know like I'm going to be very upset if I read about the things that they post, because
Right.
half of the influencers, not even half, 95% of the influencers are posting wrong information, and I hate it. Like, I am not the person who likes to highlight the things that are being done wrong in a wrongly manner by some other person, because I don't think that's my business.
Mhm.
But I want to keep learning from the good people,
Right.
people who actually know stuff. So I know there is a lot of noise on the social media platforms nowadays, and it's completely opposite of what was happening in 2014-15. In 2014-15, there was very less noise, and there was very less content to learn from. Now it's completely opposite. There is too much of content, there is too much of noise on the platform, and it can be really hard to navigate through it and like figure out like what is important and what is not. So my suggestion to those people is like, just observe. Once you start observing the behavior of these social media creators, I'm not even talking about influencers, like actual people who are working
Mhm.
there. Let's just say whoever is on social media, they're like creators. So observe the pattern of their work. Once you start observing the pattern of their work, and you see that translating into something, again I'm coming back to the same word, application. An application can be a list of broad things,
Right.
but that should be meaningful. That should be something where people can actually dive into that topic, learn from that particular post or whatever you have built, and can appreciate your work. It shouldn't be just shallow words written in a form of thread or in a form of post. That shouldn't be
Right.
like. So
Absolutely.
it's up to you, but you have to learn it the hard way. You have to observe. There is no single filter that I can tell which is like universally applicable for all the social media platforms where you can go and like see what is happening.
Right.
So if you ask
Absolutely.
me, there again, so if you ask me, I am a very Twitter kind of person, not a LinkedIn kind of person. So I hardly post on LinkedIn, even though like whenever like I share a research paper or something like that, I do post it, but it's very rare. So like
Mhm.
a month or so. But on
Okay.
Twitter, I'm active. So and I figured out like why is that? Why is it being that way? Because I think like for me, LinkedIn is not the right platform. My community is on the Twitter side, and I want to share my learnings there, and I want to like observe the people who are doing other stuff and learn from them from Twitter only. So you have
Right.
to figure that out by yourself. There is no rule. Just observe like what people are doing, what is their actual work, and you will realize like who you want to follow and what are the work that you want to learn from.
Right. Absolutely. So first thing, find out the platform which is right for you, which is the first thing. Don't just go follow along what other people are doing. Second is, once you got there to be there, just don't get influenced by other people and just divert over there, right? And third is, don't just blindly follow people, right? Because we have a concept called people follow people, but that should not be the case, right? Because it's kind of a fascinating world, and specifically students, who are new becoming a developers, they are getting influenced very high, because in the world of social media, it's getting attraction is very very easy, because
Yeah,
nowadays, since the chat GPT and AI scam, right? Everything you will get in a very easy and in a fraction of seconds. So content, and people have misled a lot of things. For example, I sometimes I laugh a lot because I worked in DevOps and cloud. So I've seen so many videos on the YouTube saying that you can become a DevOps engineer if you even don't know about the Linux, if you don't know about the programming language. I always say, और एट दैट टाइम वो हिंदी में मेरे आता है सर, कैसे भाई कैसे ये कैसे
I
हो सकता है?
I
So
agree.
like if you don't know, have the fundamentals clear, how you gonna scale anything, right? And people follow that part, and and I'll tell you, it's all about the numbers, to be very honest.
Yep,
How?
yep,
If you have a good content who has, let's say, 1,000 views, and if you have the same kind of videos who has like 10,000 views, even that content has misleading information, people going to watch that,
yep,
because
yep.
it's all about people think about the numbers, right?
Numbers.
Because yes, I realized when I was in college, whenever you post anything social media, तो यार एक चीज होता है यार, मेरी फ्रेंड ने पोस्ट, को लड़की उसने पोस्ट किया तो ज्यादा व्यूज लाइक आते हैं, मैंने किया तो बहुत कम आते हैं.
Yeah.
I'm sure
So
it happened with everyone. It's happened with
everyone.
everyone. So the key takeaway is never ever compare yourself with anyone because their audience might be different. And you
Yep.
need to realize why you're creating, why you're on social media, any social media,
Yep.
and why you creating the content. Just for the people watch it or just you want to share it. I create
Yep.
because I want to share my knowledge and that work as a document for me. For example, I speak at the conference meeting. If I want to send a reference to anyone, that will be very easy for me to share. Writing like
Mm.
a blog post, very easy to share. This content, very easy to. I don't care about the number, like how many people follow me or how many views I get, right? But
Yeah.
it's all about a number game. So just wanted to highlight people don't go for the number ground. Think about what the credibility that people that you follow that have, and stick to one thing because it's a universal rule. Grow your audience in the one stage, and from there you can distribute. Even
Yep.
the all the not just in our technology field, even let's say entertainment field, they also do the
Yep.
same thing.
Same.
They grow
Same.
their audience on one platform, then they distribute. So that is the one case. Yeah. Okay. Coming back to my favorite topic, Jax, because that's that's I'm going to my favorite because n number of one of the reason I already told.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
rest of the reason you can share while you can share more information about it. So
Sure.
Jax, because when this time we met, I've seen a lot of people actually become JDs in the Jax, right?
Excellent.
So because at when we met first time, at the time you are the only one. Now
Yep.
there are few people know who became a JD. So I think my push and my sharing of Jax about worked a lot, I guess.
Yeah. I guess. I guess so.
So just wanted to understand because Jack's gaining a lot of attention, its approach to high performance machine learning. So how
Mhm.
do you shape as a future of the ML development? And let's say when people starting adopting it, how it's offer and how it differ from the other ML frameworks. So there
Mm.
are two questions in this.
Yeah. I got your point. So to answer that question, we have to again take a step back into the past, and like then we will be coming to Jax.
Like
So
a time zone?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep, yep, yep. So I'm among those people who have written ML code for development and deployment in different libraries. So, for example, I have used in my early career days, I have used Theano, I have used Lasagna, I have used TensorFlow, I have used Torch, I have used Chainer. And if you look at the pattern of how these frameworks evolve, and this is in general applicable to any software development, whether it's ML related or not, that is a different thing, but in general it is applicable to every software that is out there. So when people are using one thing, so no one thing is perfect in this world, right? And you can't create a perfect software. There will always be some disadvantages to it. When the next iteration comes, and by iteration I mean the next ML framework comes, it tries to address all those problems that were present in the last framework and try to create another user base who prefer this framework over the last framework, because it has all the goodies that were present in the last framework, but it also comes with the things that were not offered by the previous framework. And this is consistent. Take any ML framework, and the journey of it will be like this only, right? So earlier, like Cafe was used a lot, but it was very painful to work with. Then Cafe 2 came, but it was also not very easy to work with, right? Then people either switched to PyTorch or TensorFlow, and I would say TensorFlow 1 was not even easy to work with. It was a very low level kind of framework compared to other frameworks. So every ML framework has been inspired from other frameworks that were there in the past, and there were some certain disadvantages with it. Now that people have settled on three major frameworks in ML world, one is TensorFlow, the other one is PyTorch, the third one is JAX. These are the major ones. For research purpose, PyTorch is like everywhere. You look at any paper that is coming out, and if there is a code associated with it, there is a high chance that it will be implemented in PyTorch, right? For deployment, people still most people still prefer TensorFlow too. I won't say like all the people, but most people still prefer TensorFlow because the tooling on the TensorFlow side is much more mature as compared to the PyTorch ecosystem. No offense to any libraries or framework. In fact, like I don't have any bias to any framework. I have never spoken about. I have never spoken a single bad word about any framework, and I have used all of them.
Okay.
So yeah. So I think like you should treat a tool as a tool, and you should realize what are the disadvantages of it, and like how are you going to deal with it. So in terms
Okay.
of deployment, I still see like most of the people are still on the TensorFlow side when it comes to deployment, but on the
Mhm.
research side, PyTorch has literally taken over. In 2000, late 2018 and 19, then I got to know about this new framework checks, and I knew like when I saw it, I knew like this is going to be something big, and I will tell you why. The first thing that it did is it mimicked the NumPy API. So anyone like who is doing machine learning or data science, the one library that everyone is aware of, like 99% people are aware of, is NumPy. If they are like working with the Python ecosystem, so NumPy is like the gold standard for working with n-dimensional arrays or tensors, whatever you want to say. So that is one thing. So instead of like deviating from the NumPy framework, they actually adopted it. So whatever you do in NumPy, you do in Jex. It's exactly equivalent. So the first part is it is very easy to write code in Jex because it follows a NumPy API. The second point, like if you look at how the world has shifted, so earlier like we were compiling the graphs. So whenever you write a model in machine learning, it's a directed acyclic graph DAG, and you compile it, you optimize it. That was it. Then came eager mode, and PyTorch literally made it very famous, although like it was used by chainer as well in the past, but PyTorch literally made eager mode very famous, and people get used to writing in eager mode. And now Jax came and like it literally created another another step, like where you see the performance difference between eager mode and the compiled. And now the world is again like shifting from, okay, we can still develop in eager mode, but there are ways like where we can still mimic the eager mode and also optimize the graph for like deployment. So I see that particular sweet spot to be happening on the Jax side. And Jax is a very minimal framework. And why I say minimal? So if you look at the ecosystem of PyTorch or TensorFlow, they have been here for a long time. And like, although like it's not a very long time in terms of years, but in
Mhm.
ML, like a year is a big thing. Like many things happen in a single year. So they have been here for a long time. And not just raw PyTorch or raw TensorFlow, there are libraries that have been built around these things, right? So the fragmentation in the ecosystem, right, it becomes a problem at certain point of time. And it is the journey of any ML framework. You take any ML framework, and this will be the same condition with it. Like there will be people who are using the library just as it is. There will be other people who will be developing their own libraries on top of it, and then there will be some other people who will be developing just wrappers around it to make it more useful to their workflows. And this will be like common for everything. The good part about Jex is even the ecosystem for Jex is also fragmented, but it's not that fragmented as compared to other frameworks. So when you are writing things in Jex, like the amount of confusion that you have in your mind, like whether if this framework is doing this way and this framework is doing this way, why is it that way? So that amount of confusion is little less compared to other frameworks. The other thing is it's written. Jex ask you to write write programs in a pure functional programming mode, right? And even though like it can take some time to learn how to write efficient programs in Jex using pure functional programming, but once you use it, like you actually see the advantages of using that. Like there are less number of mistakes that you will be making if you are using it regularly. You will realize that your mental model of developing things for ML will improve a lot. The other thing is like reproducibility is a very important aspect in ML. And in the past, it has been an issue. Like reproducibility is very critical issue, and it has not been solved by any other framework. Now JX takes a very separate stance on this particular thing. So it comes with the reproducibility first approach, right, where like you are handling the entropy, and I'm talking about the ML terms, but just to clarify, like you have the control of that entropy that happens within the program. So the steps that are there, you can still reproduce it, and that's why like it's much better in terms of reproducibility as compared to other frameworks. The third thing that matters a lot, and this is for research as well and deployment as well, and especially now when we are like building very large models, right, very big models, and whether it's computer vision or NLP or speech, we are like building very big models. So now it has become very important to do distributed training and distributed inference, right? So parallelism is also very easy in JAX. It's very intuitive, I would say. Not easy, it's very intuitive. So once you write those things in JAX, you will realize why is it much better compared to any other framework. It is very easy to use. It is very intuitive to use. Now there was one problem with JAX, for which I think this was another reason for the lack of adoption. There were high level APIs, but every API was much more complex, right? It's not like other APIs for other frameworks where like it makes the usage of the underlying library much easier. So every library has a steep learning curve. With Keras Core, like we are trying to address that gap, because it is the same workflow that you have been using for TensorFlow, and now you will be using the same workflow for TensorFlow, PyTorch, and JAX. So it becomes much easy for people to realize to harness the power of underlying framework, and with a much more intuitive API.
Right. I
Yeah.
I think now people will understand that why JX is my favorite, because I was so concentratedly, listening to you. And the thing that you mentioned about, though I'm not worked in the AIML because that's not my area of work, but yeah, NumPy is also I heard a lot. So I think this is a, like as you said, 99% of the people actually know NumPy. So you
Anyone is working in data science and machine learning and they're using the Python ecosystem, it is very certain that they will know about NumPy, because that is the step zero of that particular thing, right? So
right,
when you are like starting into ML and data science and you are using Python, then you have to use NumPy. That is the thing.
right. So, one of the thing I would like to know, because I follow that a lot, that whatever I do, anything, even if when I write a blog post or creating content, or let's say deliver a talk or doing anything, I have always think of what next I'm doing, right?
Mhm.
So since JAX is something you worked a lot, and the community is increasing, and the kind of project that you guys are doing. So what is the goal that you have further in the future to contribute in the Jack ecosystem? Because I'm sure whenever we do anything, we always have the what next. Because if you don't have what next, that doesn't make sense, because people then is not going to relate, or people
Yep.
not going to be curious to know more about it, right? So
Yep.
what's the future aspiration?
Yeah. So like for now, like as I said, like I have contributed to a API that is gold standard for
Mhm.
training with all the frameworks. So that is a huge milestone in terms of like contributing to the JEX ecosystem. In fact,
Okay.
even to the PyTorch ecosystem.
Hmm.
So yeah. So but if you ask me like what's next, so I would say like most people are still not aware of the things, the goodies that comes with JEX when it comes to distributed training or distributed inference.
Okay.
So in the coming months, I am thinking to write some tutorials around it and sharing it with the broader community. Though this has been on my plate for a long time, but I am like involved in so many projects. So yeah, I hardly get any time. So but I will do it. Yeah, that is my plan. Like I will put out some content where you can actually go and play with the code and realize why it makes sense to have JEX in your framework list.
Okay, awesome. I'm quite looking forward because this is on record now. If even if you're not doing it, I'm going to send this clip to you and constantly reminding you that okay, you have to publish the tutorial. What happened to that?
Yeah, yeah, sure. I have like the notebooks, but just I need to publish. So I will do it for sure.
Okay. And since you mentioned that you work with so many libraries and you mentioned that there is no bias or there is because since you worked on the so many libraries and now you know what are the best library to work with. So if you want to
Mm.
recommend what are the top 5 libraries that you can recommend anyone to use it?
Yeah. So the five libraries. So again, the first, if you talk about deep learning, then TensorFlow, PyTorch, and JEX. You should definitely learn all these three. Like I wouldn't say it would be very hard to learn if you know one of them. It wouldn't be very hard to learn the other. Although like JEX has a bit of learning curve because of the pure functional programming approach, but it won't take much of time. In fact, I have some tutorials on Kaggle. It's a full series, so you can go through it and like learn about it as well. So in terms of deep learning, these are the major frameworks that you should be aware of, like because these are now among the main stream. Like these are the one like where the community has like uh, they have agreed upon like these are the things that we are going to develop for a long period of time. That I can say. So if you ask me about deep learning, then TensorFlow, PyTorch, and JEX. If you ask me about traditional machine learning, I would say XGBoost, scikit-learn. These are very good libraries to learn from. These are very good libraries to use in your daily workflow. Of course, you should know NumPy, Pandas, and all, but it depends on use case. So there are many things out there. You have
Mhm.
to figure out like which one is useful to you and how much of the library part you need to know for your workflow.
Right,
So
right.
even though, like for example, you can be an expert in using scikit-learn or XGBoost, it doesn't necessarily mean that you know all the fundamentals of pandas because it's a huge library. So if you start learning about pandas itself, which is mostly used for data wrangling purposes, so it can take a bit of time. So it depends like what is your workflow, what is your use case, and what are the things that you need. So there are multiple libraries. I can't like make a list and share with you here, but yeah, there are multiple things, and for different workflows, there are different libraries. You just have to figure out like which one is suited for your workflow.
Based on your use case, because yeah, you rightly mentioned about based on your use case, because similarly I think in every field you have a lot of you have so many things as options to implement, but based on your use case you
Yep.
can use it, right?
Yep.
Because in the cloud and DevOps as well, there's so many tools out there. But based on your use case, based on your needs, which can solve your problem, you can use that and you can learn that. Maybe at the start, or maybe after that, gradually you can explore more, right?
Yep.
So,
And I would say like don't just learn the framework. If you just want to go beyond a level, like knowing a framework, how to use a framework or a library is one thing. Knowing the
okay,
internals and the reasoning behind it is will take you to another step. So for
okay,
example, most people find it very frustrating to work with pandas when it comes to like doing complex stuff. And I can't give you example without like showing you,
mhm,
but there are many scenarios where people get frustrated of why things are that way in pandas. But if you
okay,
look at the internal, if you look at the reasoning behind those particular design choices, you will realize how
mhm,
efficient it is. So
okay.
don't just get used to using a framework or a library. Try to learn why is it implemented that way.
Right, right. You almost mentioned what that we know about how to use it, but we don't know the fundamentals behind like why we are using it, right? We're just
Yep.
using it. We
Yep.
don't
Yep.
know the why reason we are using the fundamentals, the working fundamentals is there.
Yep.
Okay. So in that sense, because since we're talking about the fundamentals, which is something that everyone should learn, like whenever I go, I strictly advise that. So if
Mhm.
you like to advise any people who wanted to build a career in as a data scientist, right? So what is the best way to start their contributing in the open source project, or what can make that process more effective
Mhm.
if
Okay.
someone is who wants to do it?
Okay. So
Yeah.
I will talk about open source first. Like if you want to start contributing to open source, the first thing is like Figure out a problem that you are working on or you want to work on. Like there are thousands of open source libraries, you can't contribute to everything, right? So figure out like what is the problem set that you are going to work on, right? What is the one thing that you are going to use in that particular problem statement, right? If you are using that, try to understand the code behind it. As I said, like, and I am like repeating it again and again because it is very important. You should always read the library code to understand why a thing is implemented in a certain way, because these design choices heavily affect the efficiency of the library of the frame or the framework that you are using. So keep doing that. At some point in time you will get the hang of it, right? And when you think that there is a piece that you have in your workflow and is missing, or there is some new research that has came out and like you see that this is not implemented there and you want to contribute to it, just write some code, open a PR. The good thing about open source is like most of the maintainers and contributors, they are very helpful. Like even if you are a beginner contributing to open source, they will guide you step by step how to improve your PR or how to improve the process of collaborating into open source project. So instead of like just trying to fix the documentation, even though documentation is also very important, figure out a problem statement that you want to work on, figure out the missing pieces, figure out like what you can contribute to a library. It's okay if you don't find any, but you will learn a lot while reading the code itself. And if you find something is missing, just write some code, open a PR. It doesn't have to be perfect. It will have some iterations of improvement, but eventually it will be there if it is important. Yeah.
Right. And don't hesitate to ask question because that's very important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just ask
See,
question and yeah.
so one of the things that I also want to highlight is, as Mehul said, like you should always be asking questions, but politely. Yeah, like you shouldn't be bugging someone every single instance. Like have something concrete in your mind.
Right.
Ask the questions very clearly. Be polite, and I'm pretty sure like everyone who's working on open source will get back to you right away or like in some period, some amount of time.
Right. And one more thing, before asking question, make sure that you have done enough research
Yep.
about the
Yep.
problem that you're facing. It's just not that randomly you just go and ask question and eventually at the end you found that you have not done enough research. Because
Yep.
I have done that in my beginning of the time when I stuck with any issues. I just randomly search on something on the Google. If I do, I directly go to my senior or ask question. But then he asked a lot of the backfire questions to me. Then I eventually okay, this is then I realized okay, I have not done enough research, and
Yep.
I went there. So my manager told me um, until unless you have done enough research, when you done enough research, so you have enough information to explain me, so that it won't waste a lot of time to give you the end result or maybe fix the problem or
Mhm.
answer your question. So that's the work for the both the cases. So yeah, again, before asking question, make sure you did enough research from your end. And once you don't find anything, then of course you can go there and tell them you're finding and just don't ask question. Tell them that you have done this, you found this, and now I'm stuck here. So can you please help me with that? Because there is a way to do it, right? And I was not like, but yeah, eventually I learned this because of the process that I follow, the mistake that I've done, right? And we all learned with similar sense.
Yeah.
But
And if you are,
this, yes,
yeah, and if you are like experienced person and still looking for open source contributions, there are libraries like Keras Core. Like Keras Core just came out, and we are still very early from a full-fledged release, right? Where like we have a stable version. So, like where all the things that are where all the capabilities are there. So you can look at the contribution list that is open to everyone, and we are looking
mhm,
for contributors, and there are other libraries as well, so you can contribute to any open source library. If you are an experienced person, just figure out like what are the things that are out there, and what are if the authors of the library are looking for contributions.
yes. And I'm going to put all those resources which Akash mentioned about the links and everything. I'll put it on the description so that you will find everything over here. And of course, have any questions, so all the awesome ML communities are there on the Twitter. You can simply ping to any of them, and I'm sure Or the best case is, if you don't find answer, just go to the GitHub repo and create an issue there. That's the best way to do it. Create a issue, tag them,
Yep.
and they will, trust me, they will definitely answer that. And that's the best way they can explain, because Twitter has a limitation. GitHub doesn't have a limitation. You can simply explain your thoughts. You can write it down thoroughly, like what problem you're facing, what kind of a help that you need, or maybe what are the ways you want to contribute it. Right, Akash? If I
Yeah.
mention.
Yep. And it's not just issues. Nowadays we have GitHub discussions as well, where like community question answer happens. So instead of like directly creating an issue, you can actually ask a question on GitHub discussions, and like
Right.
the community will answer. So
Yeah.
you have multiple fronts now. It's just that you need to figure out like what is the appropriate stage that you want to take on, and like what are the things that you want to implement.
Right, right. Well, like, what is the best way for if I would be the case, I would go to the GitHub instead of going on Twitter,
Yep.
because that's the
Yep.
best way to explain or write it and get it one thing, and I don't need to jump here and there.
Yep.
That's the best case. And
Yeah.
to be very honest, being part of this community and asking this question, working on the open source project, that create a lot of stories, because we work with a different team. We meet a lot of like-minded people, and so that create good experience and great memories. I had a great memories with all the participants that I did, okay, offline, online, or maybe on the project that we have did, the open source project that we did. But some of the experiences always create a great place in your mind or in your heart. So have you have because the best thing about the being part of the open source projects and community, whenever you go, you have a lot of things to talk about. You have
Yeah.
so many things to talk about, right? Even the day the kind of days you made, that might be get a lesser time. So
Yeah.
I'm sure, Akash, you might have that. Just don't tell the story that we had in Goa. So don't share that one. But apart from that, if you have any have any story or experience that you work on the open source project and that happen, that lead to some good collaboration or to some people, or maybe some good breakthrough which might get the benefit to the community of ML or AI.
Yeah. So if you ask me, so I attend a very lesser number of events compared to other people, right? But my network has been built through social media only. So
Okay.
yeah, and again, I follow your advice, which you like said, like don't hesitate to ask questions. Just make sure that you have done enough research. And when I was like starting my career, I actually reached out to a lot of people, like, and was ghosted by many people, but like got a response from a lot of people, and I've been in contact with them for a long period of time. So it's up to you. If you make enough efforts, you will find a way to collaborate with the people like who inspires you, like, or who are actually working on things that you want to work on. So it's about like figuring out the right channel. Now it can be through social media platforms, it can be through repos, or it can be through like joining or attending the events that happen in your locality or community, right? So if you attend those events and you find like people are coming and talk to them, then it becomes a good opportunity to like create a good network. So it's up to you like which channel you want to choose. Just stick with one, don't try everything, just stick with one. It will take some time, but you will eventually be there.
Right. And any of your favorite story that you want to like to share, memory that you accept Goa.
So I think like the Ladakh event was really good in terms of like interacting with the community. So in fact, like that was the first event like where I met all the MLGDs as well. So like
Awesome.
I knew Sayak for a long period of time before that, but the other GDs who were working in the ML space, that was my first time I was meeting them in person. So it was really a good experience to meet like-minded people. And like again, it's not just about ML. I met you there, and we have been like talking since then. So so if there is an event and you can attend it, so I definitely say that try to attend it if possible. So yeah, because networking is a good thing. The more you network, the more easily you will figure out things.
Of course, because that's the best way to also share what you're doing, and also hear what others are doing, and that might be a good chance to call out. Because I always say, you never know what maybe the person sitting next to you might be a good collaborator for you, or maybe a good worth having the contact, or maybe some business opportunity. You never know. All
Yeah.
you just need to do is say hi to them, because
Yep.
that's what we're missing to do it.
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
but okay. Uh, you already told about your what next plan about the Jax, but do you have any specific upcoming future plans of the open source project that you want to explore, or something that you are planning to explore in the open source ecosystems?
Okay. So for now, like if I talk about open source, like because Keras Core is my main focus. There are a lot of things that needs to be implemented, and I will work on it in the near future. And I think I will invest my open source time heavily on that front. But apart from that, if you ask me, I would like to create some tutorials about the new technologies. So like in the past, like for example, last year when I was learning about diffusion models, it was very confusing because there were many resources and there were very less number of resources who provided the full picture. So I
Right.
wanted to like create a one-stop solution. So Sayak, Rishabh and I, we three people came together because we all started learning about diffusion models during that time. So we came together and thought like, let's do it. We have to learn it anyway. So whatever we learn, we would put it out there so that people can actually learn from it. So similarly, like I would like to do something on the large language models in the coming future. So but yeah, these will be like two or three main things that I will be working on in the open source.
Well,
Yeah.
awesome. Actually, I'm quite looking forward. And one of the thing already started actually. Tutorial you're going to start, but the small tutorial you have done in the today's
Yeah,
episode, because you
I
said
will put it out. I will put it out.
you
I
already
will put
started it, and the kudos to you that you already started it. This is
Yeah,
the very small part, but yeah, which means the next big thing is coming now.
yeah. Yeah, you can say that. You can say that.
Yes. So now is the last question for you, which is my favorite question. This the same question I ask all of my guests. That
Mhm.
what open source means to you.
Okay. So yeah, so if you look at the ML landscape, right, and the research that happened, so the good thing about ML community is it's very open and and I'm like having so I'm like focusing on the open word here because it is literally built on open source. If you look at the ML tech stack, everything, every major thing has been built on open source, and I think it's a very good thing because some people are against open source, like they are advocating like this shouldn't be open in the community because it is harmful and so and so.
Mhm.
My perspective to that is there are always certain good things and bad things associated with the technology, right? And if you think that you are the leader in that particular area and you think like that technology cannot should not be in open out there, right? So either you shouldn't open source it at all, right? Or either you don't even use it at all. Whether you use it open source or closed source is a different thing. Either don't use it at all because you know like it is going to be harmful. But if you are going to use it, try to be open source because the number of people that will be using your product, it will reveal what are the disadvantages of that particular technology. So my perspective when it comes to open sources, because it will be used by a lot of people, so we will know like what are the things that can actually go wrong. So it's, you can say it's a big experiment with the world out there. Instead of like experimenting on your own with the tool or technology that you have created, you are giving it to a lot of people and they are trying and they are like, and you are figuring out on the go like these are the things that are harmful for the society and we need to address those. If you don't do it, right, if you don't do it and you still advocate for the use of that particular technology by other people, it's a bad thing. Like it shouldn't be just about the money. So
Right.
let the open source be what it is. That's
Yes.
my message. Use
Yes.
open source for like sharing whatever you feel is important for the community, for the society, and let the society decides whether they actually want to pursue that or not.
Right. I think, yeah, what you said is completely makes sense. That's the beauty of open source. That is give you freedom to share what you're doing it, and also strongly advocate about everything, because open source plays a very important role in my life, because I learned everything just because of the open source. Otherwise, I would never thought to, knowing this many people being part of this some amazing project that I'm participated, right, in the cloud ecosystems. So that's the best thing. And I had a great time, talking to you, Akash, because I know how much I chased you to be come over here. So yes, so I'm so much to be very honest, I just Jax I know because of I randomly put that every time here whenever you introduce yourself. But now I actually know more about Jax, and whenever I going to meet any people and they really wanted, because people ask me questions as well that they want to learn about AIML. So I'm definitely gonna divert that, and I'm going to share this to them as well. I highly recommend to watch this episode, and also share all the resources that you have, and also because that's what I do. Whenever anyone asks, I always try to connect them via email or something, so that can maybe help. Because, and specifically those who come to us, because that's kind of effort is required. Otherwise, because as you know, otherwise you'll get a hell of a request, and if you're gonna get that, it's gonna take consume a lot of time, because in the beginning you have a lot of time, but
Yep.
eventually when you're going to start work, as you have professional career, you have a personal time, and you have a lot of things, right? So it's very hard to manage the time. But the best thing is, for the open source we always give a time, so that is the best case.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I hope you had a great time over here. I wanted to hear from you if you have
Yeah, yeah,
any.
exactly. This was a very good conversation. It was very thoughtful conversation, I would say, and it was fun to be here. And I just want to clarify, like it was not intentional that I was not agreeing to do the podcast. It was
I
because of
know.
the schedule. So I hardly get time nowadays because I'm so busy. Like uh, as Mehul said, like as you grow in your career, you find it very hard to manage your time. So, like
Right,
in early days, it's very easy when you are just starting with your career. It's very easy to put out like 18 hours or 16 hours a day into work, right? But as
right,
you progress, like you burn out. So now you start to like prioritize like what are the things that you want to do, and not everything makes to the list. So yeah,
right.
it was not intentional at all, but I did it. As I promised, I kept my promise.
Best, best part
Yeah,
that you did. And I'm glad they did it, because even I'm putting so much efforts to building, because I know that amazing folks out there and they really wanted to share their journey, their experience, because ultimately I get to learn from them as well. Also, the people who are going to listen over here, whether it's 100 people or a 10 people, I don't care. But if their life is getting somewhere get affected, or maybe scale in any of the sense in their professional life, I would be much more. I think my work is done there. So that is the whole purpose of starting this podcast. And great to hear that. And thank you so much for coming. And those who are listening to this podcast, don't. I'm going to share all the resources over here, right? And don't forget to listen. This might. I'm not sure when it's going to release, but it's going to release very soon. Thanks, Akash, for coming. And the last message for all of you is, uh, keep contributing the open source, and don't forget to share all the awesome work that you're doing it, right? Whether in terms of a blog post, Twitter thread, or DM them, anything. Just don't forget to share your awesome work that you're doing, because that's very important, right?
yep.
Thank you so much for listening to us. Thank you so much. Have a great time. Stay safe and take care.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.